Hello, hello. Welcome back to 50% Special Guest Edition.
A first for the podcast.
Yeah. So the usual Katey and Abigail are here, but we are joined by, I wish I could do a drum roll, but it's going to sound bad, Sarah Adler, the author of Mrs. Nash's Ashes, which if you've listened to that episode, you know that we loved. If you haven't listened to that episode, stop, pause, go back, start over. But Sarah, would you like to say hi and introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me barge into your DMs. I really enjoyed your episode on Mrs. Nash's Ashes. It was very flattering. It made me feel very good. And so I appreciate the chance for you to stroke my ego a little more in a more interactive format. I write romantic comedies. Mrs. Nash's Ashes is my first. And yeah, hopefully there will be more of them. There's definitely at least two more. Next year, I've got one coming out called Happy Medium, and then exclusive information, which will probably drop in the next few days. I just recently accepted an offer for book 3.
Yeah.
So
Exciting.
this is like a thing I'm doing, like a career. It's very cool. I'm very lucky.
That's so great. I have in our list of questions, like to ask you about the new book after we stroke your ego with Mrs. Nash's Ashes a little bit more. But yeah, Abigail, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So, Sarah, of course you write romance, but tell us about your general relationship with romance. Were you always like a romance reader and that made you want to write romance, or how did this career as a romance writer start?
So I found romance relatively late. Not in life, like I'm 32, hopefully that's not life, but I didn't start reading romance until I was in my like mid to late 20s. I always enjoyed romance, I always enjoyed the romantic plot line of whatever I was consuming, whether it be fiction or TV or film. But like I never really thought about it as a genre too much of something I could read. My grandmother used to have like a whole bunch of mass market, like old school, like bodice ripper, stereotype sort of books that she picked up at the drugstore. But as a little kid, I just like for some reason it didn't connect with me that like I could read those ever. And then I like started getting too serious as like a person very young, and I was like, I can't. Yeah, it was like I'm gonna read the classics, So I'm like a seventh grader reading The Count of Monte Cristo, being like, yes, this is good stuff.
And obnoxiously like carrying it around school so everyone saw how serious you were.
I don't know about that, but I definitely, we had like designated reading time, and I would whip out my like very thick mass market Count of Monte Cristo and just, sit there and read that for half an hour every day. And so I was very much on sort of a classics / like serious academic kick for a very long time. So I went to college and majored in history and American studies, and even I got a lot more into literature in general during that time because I took a lot of classes. But even so, it was still like, older stuff, like Dostoevsky and whatnot. So I was still like very serious, thinking I wanted to be a professor and thinking I was going to do a PhD in history. And I did a master's in history. And at literally the month after I finished my master's degree, I gave birth to my daughter, and then almost immediately quit my full-time job. And I was kind of left in this situation of like, now what? Because I had always kind of planned for this one thing, and it wound up completely different. And I started reading for fun again for the first time in a very long time. And I would, be feeding my daughter in one hand and like holding my phone, reading a book on the Libby app in the other. And I was just like, really, I got into it, and then I just like went, and I think I read like something like 200 books like that first year. And one of those books happened to be Kelly Siskin's New Orleans Rush, which is like a very odd entry point actually into the genre because it's not super well known. And it's like bonkers. Like, it's about like this magician in New Orleans. He's like very he's very grumpy. He and his brothers all have like very strange, like unusual names. He winds up recruiting this woman who's like on the run from the mafia to like be his assistant, and she's like very sunshine. He's very grumpy. There's like a fake murder with lots of ketchup. I don't know. It's like a really bonkers, very fun book. I enjoyed it so much. And also like sex on the page. Like, I was like, whoa, I could be reading this. Like, instead of things that are sad and depressing, I could like, there's more of this out there. And that kind of opened it up to me as an option to read. And I just went from there. I started reading some of the books that were coming out around that time, still through the library, just vociferate? No, that's not the word. A lot.
Voraciously.
Yes. And so it's really interesting because when I started writing, I didn't know I was writing romance. Even though I was like reading all of these romance books, I was like, I'm writing serious women's fiction.
Oh.
Which I was not. I mean, I wasn't writing anything that was worth publishing for sure. But I mean, it still was like a central love story. And I still wound up with them together at the end. It just, took... I mean, so your podcast is called like 50% because that's like when they're supposed to sort of kiss maybe or do something. Literally 95% in, they finally kissed.
Oh my god!
Bad pacing.
Yeah, we would have had words about that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I found it at a time when I really needed something to kind of escape into, which of course was extra great when 2020 hit. I already had a place to escape into and already was writing, and at that point had kind of realized I was trying to write romance, and it was sort of a happier place to be. But also just like, I wish I had had romance when I was younger, because looking back, I think my relationships would have been so much healthier if I had had those as what I was trying to model things after, as opposed to like other forms of media in which like power dynamics and like weird stuff is often prized because it's good storytelling. I feel like I went into a lot of my like teenage relationships thinking that was normal and good, as opposed to like respect and consent and, being equal with your partner and caring about each other. And so that is my very roundabout answer to your question of how I found romance, sort of by accident because of libraries, because libraries are great.
I love that. Very, very supportive of the Libby app. So supportive of the library that I live outside of city limits, so I pay for my library card. I had never heard of New Orleans Rush before, and I added it to my list on Storygraph because you say magician, and I'm like, yeah, that's just fucking weird enough that I gotta do it.
It is fun. Kelly Siskin in general, she writes a lot of really fun premises. It's sort of the more almost wacky caper style of rom-com that was popular in like the late 90s, early 2000s, like Jennifer Crusoe is my all-time favorite. It's sort of more that vibe, and I really love it. And I feel like she's one of the few people out there doing that. She has one about a thief and an Elvis impersonator.
Stop.
It's like about an art heist. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
These sound like Mary-Kate and Ashley capers.
Yes, grown-up Mary-Kate and Ashley.
Grown-up Mary-Kate and Ashley romance. I'm obsessed with that.
Yeah, I love that. I just added it to my TBR. I haven't read any of her books, and I don't know if I've heard of her, so I'm going to go down that rabbit hole later. But okay, so you said that you fell into romance accidentally. You started writing and you didn't know what you were writing was romance. Have you like always written for fun outside of like, getting your master's and that stuff? And like, how did you get the idea for Mrs. Nash's Ashes? Was it that like bad one that you were just telling us about that then evolved, or like, how did that kind of all come together?
So I always used to write little stories for fun as a little kid. Like I would write and illustrate little books for family members all the time. My grandma actually gave me one. My grandmother gave me one a couple months ago that she found somewhere in her stuff. And my favorite activity in school was like once a year we would get to write a book and take it to what was called the publishing center, which was just like this little extra storage closet where some volunteers would have like wallpaper samples and cardboard and construction paper, and they would type up your handwritten story onto different pages and like bind it into this cute little book, and you would get to like draw in it. And that was my favorite thing every single year. So my parents still have like a ton of those somewhere.
I love that. That's so cute.
So cute. I feel like all schools should do that. I mean, it was a huge like time and resource like suck, but we had so much fun with it. And so again, I kind of hit a point where I got too serious for fiction, and that included writing it. And part of that, I think, was like my growing interest in history made me feel like I felt a lot of pressure to get facts correct. And so I started wanting to write historical fiction. And I would start and immediately hit a block of like, well, I don't know that information. I'd have to do a whole bunch of research first. And then it would just feel so overwhelming before I would even get like a page in that it started to feel like not something I could accomplish reasonably. And then, college, I wrote some like 2 bad little creative writing pieces to submit to the literary magazine that both got rejected. And I was like, all right, never mind. And I just did a lot of like academic writing. So after I started reading again, my best friend was taking a children's book writing class somewhere. And I was like, it sounds really fun. Like I would like to start writing again, but I don't know where to start, because I still felt like I needed to know everything about writing and the story I wanted to tell before I could even start writing. And she was like, just start, like just write something and see what happens. So I did. And it turned into like an actual full-length thing. Like I said, it was very bad. Nothing like Mrs. Nash's Ashes, other than being first person. It was first person.
I love that that's the one common thread.
Yes. Oof, I don't even know if I want to go into it. Because the thing about writing, especially your first one, I feel like is you getting something out that you need to get out. And a lot of times it's something very embarrassing. I'm very envious of the people who just sit down and write a really great novel that is not like too revealing about whatever their mind is going through at that time. So anyway, that one taught me a lot about the process, not only of writing, but like of trying to get an agent. Introduced me to the idea of going to writing workshops, things like that. And then I had a second one that was like, okay, I'm trying to write a rom-com. I know this now. And I intentionally set out to do that. Again, that one was more fun. That one was better, but did not get me an agent. So Mrs. Nash's Ashes came about as I was kind of laying that second one to rest. I was like, all right, time to start saying goodbye to this one. It's not going to happen. And there were like 2 very different things happening in my brain at the same time. One was that I had heard an interview on the radio with this musician who was talking about how when his mother died, he took her ashes on tour with him and would sprinkle a little bit of her on all the stages after he played. And I was like, that's a lovely gesture. But at the same time, I could not stop thinking about the logistics of it. Because what happens then? Like, does some poor stagehand have to come out with like a broom or a little vacuum at the end of the night and like who is he scooping it back into the urn and taking? I just could not stop thinking about this. And at the same time, when I'm trying to brainstorm a new idea, sometimes I look at like old screwball comedies. Usually I'll like pull up the Wikipedia page for like classic screwball comedy, and I'll just start thinking through the plot lines and like, what would an updated version of this look like? And I started thinking about It Happened One Night, and I was like, that could be really fun in an updated, like kind of grumpy sunshine road trip situation. And then eventually I just realized, wait, these ideas could maybe go together. And that's how Mrs. Nash's Ashes happened.
Hearing that it's part of the origin story is that it's a screwball comedy makes so much sense now. Of that, we have a broccoli festival, we've got deer, we've got olive oil spills. This makes so much sense now. So thank you for that. That was very revealing. So one of our favorite things about this book, or one of the things we love about this book, is just the characters of Hollis and Millie, both separate and together. Where did a lot of inspiration for them come from?
So I think their dynamic comes from the first season of New Girl, Nick and Jess. Like, there's something specific about that first season where she's a little goofier than she is through the rest of the series, and he's a little grumpier and not as like whimsical. And there's this like really fun dynamic from the beginning of like, you can tell he is like extremely baffled by her and annoyed by her, but also very like intrigued. And I really kind of liked the idea of establishing something like that. But also, I think Millie kind of, I feel like this is weird to say. It makes me sound, I don't know. I don't know. But she kind of just like appeared on the page. She like told me who she was in a way that I've never really experienced with any other characters. When I started writing Mrs. Nash's Ashes, I remember distinctly I was in a Starbucks parking lot because I did a lot of my writing in parking lots at that point, thanks to COVID. And I remember thinking, okay, I am not going to censor myself. Whatever voice comes out is the one I'm going with. I'm not going to try to make it sound more intellectual. I'm not going to try to make it sound like anything it's not. I'm just going for it. And what came out was Millie. And before I knew it, she was like, people still recognize me sometimes. And I was like, they do? Like, tell me more about this. And she's like, you know, I haven't been on TV for 14 years or whatever it is. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I had no intention at first of making her like semi-famous. It was more just like, she started talking and that's where the story took me. And I went with it. And, you know, I feel like other than sort of the Jess Day inspiration, which obviously I didn't want to make her like a carbon copy, it was kind of just me leaning into like all of my impulses and not stopping them like I usually would. So, you know, if I saw a taxidermy bear, there would be part of me that would be like, I want to stick my fingers in there. And then, you know, but then I would be like, no, but Millie doesn't. She's like, yes, that is something I still want, even, you know, 30, 40 minutes later.
But did you touch a taxidermied bear for research?
No, I didn't. Partially because COVID, partially because I'm actually kind of scared of taxidermy. I do not like it. I'm very uncomfortable about taxidermy. There were definitely restaurants I refused to eat as a child because there was taxidermy, and I was like just freaked out by it. But my critique partner, Amber Roberts, whose debut text appeal just came out, she used to work at like a natural history museum. She's worked at a lot of cool places, but that was one of her jobs. And so as I was writing this and I got to that point, I was like, I got to find out what this feels like. And she's like, oh, I know what it feels like. I've touched the inside of a taxidermy bear. And I was like, oh. So that like very thorough description is actually from her.
Yeah, that I love that. And I am also uncomfortable with taxidermy. I don't know if you recall from the episode about your book of my best friend's growing up house with all the taxidermy animals staring at me. And I think it is, I think I'm still deeply traumatized.
Yeah, that's a nightmare. I would not have been able to. Nope. Definitely not.
It was bad. Okay, the names, because Hollis Hollenbeck is a hell of a name. So I demand to know how that came into your brain.
Yeah. So I think you guys, did you call him, you said it was a Muppet name, I think, and I fully agree.
Ariel said that.
I fully agree. Yeah.
We did call him a Muppet.
So Hollis's character originated as a completely different character in a different project that I abandoned like 10,000 words in. And in that project, he was a history professor named F. Hollis Wright. And yeah, so Frederick Hollis Wright. And I was like, maybe I'll just recycle that name because like it has the right vibes. And then I was like, I cannot actually make a writer character with the last name Wright. That is too much. So I was like, he needs a new last name. So one of the things I do when coming up with a name is I Google a lot of my ideas to make sure they're either extremely common or extremely rare so that I'm not like accidentally naming them after a real person. And so I came across, you know, eventually just after trying different options, and I tend to favor alliteration. especially in like male love interests. I don't know why. It's been a trend like through all of my projects. But when I got to Hollis Hollenbeck and I Googled it, there was like nobody with that name. And I was like, okay, let's go with that. Because I also just, I don't know, F. Hollis Hollenbeck feels like somebody who would write literary nonfiction.
That's true.
It does feel
That's
very
true.
literary. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
You're right. So, okay, I'm glad we solved that mystery to us.
I know. Process of elimination is the answer.
I hope you are not offended by our envisioning him a little bit as a Muppet, but
no, I think that he is. Like, he tries to be very serious and stuff, and grumpy, but he's a little bit of a Muppet.
Yeah, he has the grumpy old man Muppet energy. Muppets, the two. I always forget their names, but
Me too.
Statler and Waldorf.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Statler
Thank
and
you.
Waldorf. Yeah.
Oh
that's
my gosh,
great.
Thank you. So for Mrs. Nash's Ashes, did you always envision it as a dual timeline where we were also learning about Mrs. Nash's love story alongside Millie and Hollis's?
I'm not sure if I always envisioned it as dual timeline, so much as I knew I needed some information in order to make it feel worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And my original instinct was letters, just go epistolary with it. But I don't really feel like I write very good letters. Like, if I was a reader, I would skip over them. Some people do it really well, but I don't know that I'm one of them. And it also just seemed like too obvious of an answer to the sort of problem. So I was like, well, maybe if I instead do sort of flashbacks, that could be interesting. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it as, flashbacks that are in a completely different voice, completely different tense and POV. And that's another thing that I really like doing is just like any excuse to add extra POVs or like tense changes. I'm really big on. But yeah, so I think it was also kind of a craft decision for me to have fun with it in a way. And then of course, I think once I started doing it, I realized like, oh, this can also be a framing device for the end of the story, for the conflict. And so, I definitely put some thought into it. It wasn't like an automatic, this is how I'm going to do it. But
Yeah. I don't remember, Katey, did you call it as a framing device? Because I certainly didn't until we kind of like got to the end and it was kind of revealed that was the story that Hollis was writing. I just kind of envisioned them as flashbacks, and I thought that was a really clever and also a very valid conflict to have at the end of the book or toward the end of the book. Often we talk about conflicts that we don't feel are valid, that you kind of like almost have to put in a romance for there to be a conflict. This one we did agree was extremely valid for them to fight about.
It's been really interesting, even in like the querying process of trying to get an agent. Then the people who said they were surprised by it and the people who were like not surprised at all. And also when I was talking to different editors before selling the book, just how differently they all wanted to handle those flashbacks. Some of them really didn't like them or wanted to reframe them as more obvious flashbacks with like Millie leading into every single one and just kind of, so it was really interesting just kind of how people have felt about them very differently. And I try very hard not to read reviews, and I've been really good about it for a while now, but I've seen some reviews where people are like, Millie overreacted like to what Hollis did. And I'm like, really? I feel like that is not like, she said some mean things, but like, I feel like that's a pretty big like betrayal. So it's also just interesting how many people are like, she reacted exactly appropriately, and some people saying she was overly dramatic and should have just gotten over it.
No, I think I said this on the pod of, being somebody's muse is not something that you take lightly, I guess. And like, you're a person too. You can't just be somebody's inspiration. And I think Millie put that in such maybe mean terms to Hollis, but she was correct also when this conflict came up. And yeah, you're a person. You can't just be fodder for somebody. And I think that is maybe at least a feeling that like I have felt occasionally is like, I'm not, we don't just exist for you to become a better person, or we don't just exist for you to become a famous writer and for you to capitalize on what I'm telling you. So I find it very reasonable, but that's just my opinion.
I agree. And that's also like probably because like some of the stuff we're comparing it to is like so totally off the wall, like infuriating stuff that happens sometimes at the end of these books where I'm like, if y'all would have just fucking talked to each other, then this would have never happened. But okay, like a normal person would have just said something, but whatever.
Yep. Which is also kind of, I think, a refreshing thing about this book is that Millie says every single thing that she's thinking. As maybe like mildly inappropriate or off the wall as it is. And that is something Katey and I can relate to because we have rarely met a thought we didn't say out loud. Unfortunately, sometimes.
Unfortunately.
So thank you for that representation.
Yeah, it's not my best quality, but
nope.
But it's helped me in some ways. So, okay, so you told us that this was like based on all these different like comedies that you had been reading about, but I am so interested in how you come up with the ridiculous stuff that happens in this book. Like I would have never thought of an olive oil spill. Jose Napoleoni's, which is our next question, our next question, so we can save that. But like just like how does this arrive in your brain? Like what happens? How do you get olive oil spill? How do you get broccoli festival? Like
so the olive oil spill is a real thing that has happened. Like if you like Google it, it has happened before where like roads have closed down because like a huge tanker carrying olive oil sprung a leak. As I'm writing, I kind of hit a problem and I go, what would be a fun way to solve this? And sometimes I do a little research, like, is this totally like out there? Like my goal is always something that is like believable but out there, like something that has an element of realism to it. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I was like, okay, they need a reason why they have to go off the highway. What is a fun, not necessarily traumatic reason? You don't necessarily want like a 12-car pileup or something where you have to worry about, are people okay? I do say like that the olive oil spill caused accidents, but they were very minor. It was fine. Just like a slow slide into each other.
Minor fender benders.
It's fine. They pulled over. It was all good. So yeah, and then I just think, what's slippery? I start Googling and I find out
what is slippery.
This really happened. It is a thing that can logistically happen. And then the broccoli festival is kind of a weird one because I was like, all right, I want a fun small town festival. Where I grew up in Pennsylvania, we had Dutch Days, which was like a reference to Pennsylvania Dutch, not like the German Dutch, not the Dutch Dutch. And it was just like a street festival where I used to be a live mannequin for my mom's bridal shop, but that's a completely different story. So we had something like that. We also had like an apple harvest festival because it was apple country nearby. And so I was like, something like that would be fun. What is a food or agricultural product that is big in South Carolina without being obvious? Looked up a chart of like what's in season when, like what's their biggest exports. Broccoli, surprisingly, pretty high up there.
Shocking to me.
Underrepresented that South Carolina is a big broccoli producer. And I was like, all right, that's a fun festival. And so I went with it. And then literally like a week ago, my husband, who has read this book something like 6 or 7 times because he's also my alpha reader. He's always the first person to read anything I write. I found out doing a book club conversation that in the town next to his that he grew up in South Carolina, Irmo, they have what's called the Okra Strut Festival, where it's an okra festival where people also make clothes out of okra. And I was like, how did you never tell me about this? Like, how have we been together for 13 years and you have never once mentioned to me this okra festival in the town next to yours. And he's like, oh, I thought that's what the broccoli festival was a reference to.
Oh my gosh.
He thought the whole time that I knew about this. Anyway, so long story short, broccoli festival, not a direct reference to any particular festival, but apparently another thing that is like whimsical yet realistic.
Whimsical yet realistic.
Probably less whimsical than the okra strut, quite frankly. I feel like if I knew about that, I would have upped my game a little bit. But
that it's called the okra strut? That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, because they strut around in their okra outfits. And it's the South, so that's like a normal thing to say.
Unbelievable.
Yup. Amazing, incredible. I gotta go to an okra strut now.
Yeah, the closest thing to that, there in a small town near here, there's something called the watermelon thump, but there is no thumping. That's just what it's called. I'm sure the thump is based in some thumping related activity that occurred in years past, but yes, it's the watermelon thump.
Aren't you supposed to thump on watermelons to see if they're ripe? Like you knock on them?
Oh, maybe.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah, that's probably what it is. It's probably what it is. Yeah.
I've also heard of, at that same like book club conversation, somebody from maybe Alabama told me that their town had like a denim festival because their town was like a big producer of denim. And so everything was just denim, I guess, kind of like the Britney Justin like outfits, just everything denim.
That must have been a big year for them when Britney and Justin wore their denim outfits.
They're like, yes.
Yeah, finally, this is what we wanted.
I love it. I love it.
All right. Jose Napoleoni's.
There's really no question. It's just like...
just tell you whatever I can.
Explain, because the amount of people I tell about the existence of Jose Napoleoni's, where I'm like, they're like, what book should I read? And I was like, I have a book for you. Mainly because it's a great book, but mainly because this ridiculous thing occurs. And so I like, where did that come from? The level of detail. And then you told us over Instagram DM that Jose has a gritty backstory. Yes. And we're dying to know everything that's in your brain related to Jose and his incredible restaurant.
Okay. All right. So I wanted them to make a stop at a restaurant. Part of that was because I hadn't eaten in a restaurant in a really long time when I was writing this, and I just missed it a lot. Like, my project before that I wound up shelving, I wrote it, I started it literally the week before lockdown started, and that one had like 7 different restaurant scenes. So obviously I was just like trying to express like something there. So for this one, I tried to keep it down a little bit. And the first draft of it was awful because I forgot how to interact with people in a restaurant. So everyone was just saying thank you all the time, like back and forth. I had to cut a lot of the initial interactions and like try to remind myself. But at the same time, like I also feel like it lent an air of like reality to it because like Jose is just so excited to have customers that he's like very over the top about it. And somebody who worked in food service during that period when people started coming back to eat inside was telling me like that was so realistic, where everyone was just like so profusely excited all the time and thanking each other. And like, so I feel like there's some of that in there that reads very differently now than when I wrote it. But yeah, okay. So I was like, I want this to be an interesting restaurant. I thought fusion cuisine could be interesting. What are 2 cuisines that you don't usually see together, but like have a lot in common? There is a restaurant in York, Pennsylvania, which is kind of near where I grew up, but I never went to this restaurant. But I heard radio ads for it a lot, called I can never say this either. Mexitali Cantina. And it is not fusion. It is, they have Mexican and they have Italian. And I was like, but what if they had Mexican Italian? And so then I like started Googling like Mexican Italian fusion recipes. not that many out there, so I had to make up all of the food names. I was like, what have I gotten myself into? And I loved the idea that it was this guy who was just like really passionate about both like sides of his family heritage. And so he wanted to combine like all of his family recipes into like one recipe. And so he decides he wants to open a restaurant. And because he's like, you know, new to this, he has to kind of get whatever location is cheap and available. So he winds up in like a former Pizza Hut off the highway. Because also there's a lot of former Pizza Huts. Like,
yep.
Lots of them.
And they've all been turned into something else, and you can definitely tell that they were once a Pizza Hut.
Exactly. So I was like, all right, so this is definitely a former Pizza Hut. It's a family business. Like, he's still early days. He doesn't have a lot of extra money. So his teenage son is helping out kind of against his will. Yeah. So, okay. So I don't know if he has a gritty backstory so much as like, if I ever were to write a Jose book, which I never would, but if I did, it would be like a gritty mystery that takes place like at the restaurant.
Yes.
I just feel like the like noir vibes would be very fun in that setting. But so something else about Jose. Okay, so do you remember, this is very like not an important thing, so you might have forgotten. When Millie's looking at the reviews, there's like one that's inexplicably in Polish.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So that review is a 1-star review in Polish. That is from Jose's ex-girlfriend's family, who are mad because they think that he broke up with her when in reality it was the other way around. Because they could not agree on his new restaurant because this was his dream. And she kept saying, but you need Polish stuff here too. Because her family is Polish. And she's like, if you loved me, you would include my family as well. And he was like, I can't do that. Like, that's too much fusion. Too much fusion.
So it would be like chorizo, ravioli, pierogies.
Honestly, it could be good, but it would be unrecognizable as anything related to anything, but it could be good. So they broke up, not on good terms necessarily, but the bear was a gift from her before they broke up to celebrate the opening of his restaurant. And its name is Boris Karloff. And it is because they met at like a vintage horror film convention.
Incredible.
So I'm delighted by this entire thing.
Yeah, that is pretty much Jose's deal. And I think I've been pronouncing Trattoria wrong my whole life. I think it's actually Trattoria.
Oh, I say it the first way.
Yeah, at least according to Mara Wilson, she pronounced it in the audiobook Trattoria, and I had sent like a pronunciation guide, so I think she was just very politely correcting me. Because I was like, yeah, Jose Napoleoni's Rio Grande Trattoria. You know,
that's how I've been saying it the whole time.
With my weird Pennsylvania, Baltimore, New York accent, and she is just like Trattoria, like a worldly person. So I think I maybe have been pronouncing that wrong in my head and maybe aloud forever.
I do think that when we recorded the podcast episode, that was probably the first time I've ever said that word aloud, but I have in my head said it wrong. Yeah. Well, and I try to avoid saying it because I know that I don't really know what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of those words that like you recognize it when you see it, but you don't really want to have to say it. So you'll like talk around it. Yeah. That's my plan going forward. I could just look it up, but I think instead I'm just going to avoid ever saying it again.
Yeah. Abigail's fiance is Italian, so we could get an answer, but perhaps we just won't.
I also have to tell you that we went to my fiance who went to culinary school. He's a very good cook and he's a sommelier professionally and works at a very nice Italian restaurant. And we asked him to please bastardize Italian food for us and make us a fusion menu. And he was he's very up to it. And he went to ChatGPT and asked it to make him a Mexican Italian fusion menu. It came up with some good shit. So I'm gonna ask him to dig it up, and I'll send it to you if you would like the menu. It was extensive.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
it was
amazing.
very funny. We did ask, I think we asked him to make the ravioli for us too, and he did reluctantly agree, I think, if I remember that correctly.
He was like, fried ravioli, isn't that just like, that just sounds like pizza rolls? And I was like, sure,
Kind of.
I'll eat it.
Yeah,
You know what? I will. Great.
exactly.
So, we're still gonna make him do this at some point.
Yeah, we'll send you photos. It's when it happens. I would try the chorizo ravioli. I grew up in Texas. I want a chorizo ravioli to exist, like really badly.
Yes. I listened back to our episode. We devoted a lot of time to Jose Napoleoni for the episode.
I dedicate a lot of my mental space to Jose Napoleoni's. I cannot stop thinking about this place.
Same, clearly. I've given him a whole backstory when he was just a side character.
I hope one day that if you get to make like a second edition or something of Mrs. Nash's Ashes, you get like a bonus chapter, and it's just a bonus chapter of Jose Napoleoni. And his...
Oh my God! Please have a Patreon and have that be the award.
Yeah.
So I actually just wrote a bonus epilogue that I'm hoping to send out as a newsletter thing eventually. And I like polled my Instagram people to see what they wanted. I don't remember if Jose Napoleoni was an option, but they very much wanted a traditional epilogue, and not, Jose and his new waitress solving a murder.
Wrong.
We're the only ones who want that, apparently, which is fine. I understand they want a continuation of Hollis and Millie's love story.
Of the actual real story.
Yeah. Which actually, yeah, that is a question I have for you, maybe without, revealing too much of what is in your epilogue. But, we kind of leave off the book at Hollis and Millie reconnecting at the beach in a very funny and very heartwarming moment of him throwing his journal into the ocean, which I would have killed him. But, in your mind, like, what do Hollis and Millie do the rest of that day after they get out of the ocean?
So it's almost nighttime. But they also like slept for a big chunk in the middle of the day. At least Millie did. Millie never did eat dinner. She literally was like subsisting on like half of a Fig Newton and a piece of, I think, banana bread and a ice mocha. So I think first he probably takes her somewhere for sustenance. Or they order pizza or something. Because I guess they're like wet now. So they probably shouldn't go to a restaurant. Yeah, so I think it's that. And then, just like talking about the future, I guess. They gotta talk about that and what happens when they get back. They have to make plans to go back now that they kind of know the situation. They have to decide when they're going to leave and go pick up Hollis's car from Chip Autobody and, I guess see everyone in Gadsby again, at least briefly. And yeah, so I think the rest of the night is probably spent kissing a lot and making plans. And then probably like the next day, they both like do some heavy research into getting therapy if they're not already in it. 'Cause I feel like they need it. And I think they're aware enough to know that if this is going to work between them, like they have to work out some of their baggage.
Thank God.
Yeah. I think that Hollis maybe has been in therapy, but just not for very long. And I think Millie's going to find a therapist and work out some of her stuff. So that they can be happy and healthy and not necessarily just rehashing the same arguments over and over.
I'm happy for them and making that choice. And on the other hand, the other love story in the book, when you were kind of plotting this out, was it always the case that Elsie was going to pass away before Millie could see her? Or was there a second reality where Elsie and Millicent did actually get to meet?
I definitely thought about it pretty intensely when I first started, of like, what is the end game here? I didn't think I could write a satisfying book in which she was alive, because I did not think that scene would hit right. I felt like it would just it would answer too many questions. It would be too satisfying. It would probably veer into like, overly emotional. I didn't feel up to that challenge of figuring out how to make that scene work. But I felt like having her die before Millie even had a chance to get there. It was never a question of like, is she just too late or is she really too late? She had to have never had a chance, because I did not want there to be any moment where Millie or the reader is like, well, if she hadn't put her hand in that bear's mouth, she would have made it. It had to be before her plane would have even taken off. I knew that all along. Yeah, I feel like, especially as I was writing, I wanted to write a book that was really hopeful, but at the same time, I was, in the middle of a pandemic, and not everything always works out. There are a lot of things we don't have control over. There are a lot of things that, despite our best intentions, we can't make happen. And I felt like there was something interesting there to explore of like, what happens when you're on this mission and the mission fails? Like, does it really fail? Like, even if you wind up in a different place than you intended to go, like that can still be a worthwhile trip. So yeah, I definitely thought about it. And then it was tempting, because I don't like hurting my characters, which is one of the reasons that the first two things I wrote didn't work, because nothing happens, because I didn't want to hurt my characters. But I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to challenge myself to do it this time, and make everyone upset.
Yeah. It is certainly a very gutting point in the book where Millie finds out she was never going to make it, but it also leads to a lot of good things. And that was something we talked about on the podcast, was that moment that Millie really breaks down. And yeah, it's tough, but it's also relatable, unfortunately. So yeah.
All right, Abigail, this question is all you.
Oh yeah, sorry, I gotta ask, what's your actual favorite Steely Dan song? Is it really Dirty Work?
No, I like Dirty Work a lot. I do. It's a good song.
We all like Dirty Work. It is a great song.
It's one of the few things I can kind of almost play on piano, just like the opening few notes. I can't do more than that. So like, I grew up listening to Steely Dan with my dad in the car, and I, talk about media that highlights problematic relationships. Steely Dan songs, man. I was like, oh, Hey 19 is a how-to manual, right? Like, I'm supposed to be her, right? So, yeah. I have too many. Like, honestly, I feel like that's a cop-out answer, but I kind of have gone through phases in my life where I hyper-focus on one, and I always love Kid Charlemagne. I really like Caves of Altamira.
Oh, I was hoping you would say that one.
Home at Last is like really understated but beautiful. Gaucho is so much fun. I really love Gaucho.
Yeah.
And Glamour Profession is so much fun. Although my 5-year-old does not like that song if it comes on. She says, this sounds spooky. I don't like it.
It's spooky.
Because it has that kind of like ominous, like minor chord opening.
She doesn't like the disco influence on Steely Dan in their later work.
No, she does not like that. But yeah, I just really love Steely Dan. And also their like last 2 albums were also very good and, very formative for me, because that was like some of the first CDs I had to listen to while driving on my own, like in 2006-ish, just driving to my little part-time job, listening to Everything Must Go.
Yeah. Just made my little Steely Dan CDs.
Yeah. Just, really relating to like Two Against Nature as, a 16-year-old girl.
Yes, as one does. Yeah. I also grew up listening to Steely Dan with my dad, and I always associate the entirety of Gaucho with A House Cleaning Day of Babylon Sisters and Hey 19 and Glamour Profession. And now I went through like a very depressive episode in college where I was just listening to the Royal Scam like over and over again for whatever reason. So it's always really lovely when I get some like Steely Dan representation, especially in a romance, which I don't think has happened thus far. So
I would not be surprised if Carrie Winfrey has maybe managed it. She's a yacht rock girly. But my mom cannot stand Donald Fagen's voice. And so it was very much one of those things that like was like just for me and my dad. Like if we were in the car together, we got to listen to it. If mom was there, we could not.
Yeah, this sent me definitely down like a little Steely Dan hole and like putting Peg on repeat like I do sometimes because, man, I love that song.
I love how hard Michael McDonald goes in backing vocals. Anytime he's in the background vocals of a song, he's giving it like 500% of his effort.
Oh, yeah.
And all you hear is him.
I understood none of what y'all just said, but I'm really happy for you both.
Thank you.
Okay, so tell us about your new book that's coming out.
Yeah, I think this is like the first time I officially get to like talk about it, which is very exciting because it's not like I used to have this like coy response that I was supposed to give before it was like official, and now I can actually talk about it, which is awesome. But that also means I have not practiced summarizing it, so this is not gonna be great. But yeah, so it's called Happy Medium. The short version is that it's about a fake spirit medium, a hot farmer, and a ghost. It is an enemies to lovers, forced proximity, slow burn rom-com. It started as a Twitter joke because I was like, sometimes just for fun, my husband and I, or me alone, will like come up with like a title and then think about what that story would be. And I was like joking around in my own brain while folding clothes or something. And I was like, oh, a fun pun would be, I ain't afraid of no goats. What would that book be? And then I was like, oh, it's Ghost, but like on a goat farm, and where the original thought was like Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg get together. But then I was like, I don't want to write a ghost love interest. I don't think I have the skills for that. Other people have done it better. I don't want to even throw my hat into that ring. But then I was like, what if Demi Moore and Whoopi Goldberg got together? So Gretchen Acorn is a former con artist, sort of current con artist. She is a fake spirit medium living in DC and like working with all the wealthy old ladies there, and trying to tell herself she's like putting more good out in the world than she is bad. And her wealthiest client is like, my bridge partner is trying to sell this goat farm. He can't. There's a haunting. Please go help. And she's like, sure, anything for you and your $10,000. And so she goes out there expecting to find this like elderly man, but instead it's this like hot young guy named Charlie, who immediately clocks her as a fraud and is like, get off my property. And as she's leaving, she runs into an actual ghost whose name is Everett. And he is a 1920s himbo, and he is amazing. And he's like, hey, you can see me. That's really cool. You're the only person who can save Charlie from this like family curse. Because if he leaves this property, he dies. So you should, stick around and fix that. So she does.
Oh my God.
It's very fun.
I don't even know.
I don't really know what to say. Other than like, I feel like you like weirdly hit on all the things that I like in a romance novel without me fully realizing. Like hot farmer. Yeah. Ghost. Always. Yes. Always a ghost. I'm always interested in a ghost. Cons. I love a con. I'm so in. And it comes out in April.
Yeah, yes? April 30th, 2024. And there's goats in it. It's a goat farm still. They made me... Okay, so the working title was Ain't Afraid of No Goats. They let me keep that way longer than I expected. I was like, any day now they are going to email me. And eventually my editor was like, okay, but seriously, I'm about to take
what
this
is the actual title?
Big meeting. We should probably think about this. And one of my friends very brilliantly came up with happy medium, which is perfect. And I'm very grateful to her, because those title conversations can get rough if you don't have an easy answer. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. It was a very, very hard book to write, but I've kind of re-fallen in love with it over the last few months, and I'm really excited for people to read it.
I can't wait. You're now in league with all our favorite girlies that put out books in April. Abby Jimenez, Emily Henry, and Sarah Adler.
Oh, it's intimidating. I asked my agent and editor, I was like, could I get moved to like, you know, I don't know, a quiet month like November and just hide? I keep winding up with like Carly Fortune and Emily Henry and all of these big books, and I'm like, people should not be buying me along with them.
But they should. They should. If I have anything to say about it, they should be. But this is so exciting. So we end this podcast the same way every time, which is we share what we're reading right now. So what are you reading right now? It doesn't have to be romance, but bonus points if it is.
I am reading an advanced copy of Abby Waxman's new book. So it's like a very fun women's fiction. It's called Krista Comes Out of Her Shell. It's super fun. It's about this like very introverted, kind of grumpy scientist who studies sea snails, and her missing famous father reappears after like 20 years, and it's like a big thing. And so it's about like her dealing with that and her family and love and whatnot, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I'm also reading, because I usually have to read at least 2 books at one time to stay somewhat on schedule, a recommendation I actually got from Sarah Hogel, because she, Alex Harrow, a bunch of people really love the Emily Wilde books by Heather Fawcett. Mm-hmm. And so Sarah Hogel recommended Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, and it's so much fun. And it's like if Howl from Howl's Moving Castle was like merged with Dr. House somehow. I don't know. Whoa. It's a very fun vibe. I really am enjoying myself. So yeah, so those are the 2 things I am currently reading.
Okay, I'm on my other screen adding everything to my list. Abigail, what are you reading? Sorry, I just did my teacher voice. I'm sorry.
Abigail, what are you reading?
What are you, I can't not do it now. It's just there.
What are you reading, Abigail? Anyway, I have something really shameful to admit, and that I have reread 3 of the Click books in the past week for no fucking good reason. Other than I was just curious.
That is not, the listeners cannot see, but my jaw is on the floor. I'm so happy for you.
Middle schoolers maybe should not read them. They are really funny still. They are funnier than I remember. I remember like my junior year of high school, I think it was like during like college admissions time. I was really stressed out, and I reread like the entire Click series in like 3 weeks. I'm also in a time of like happy stress, but still stress. And so I was like, you know what? Let's see if it's on Libby. Let's see if it's available right now. Guess what? It was. And I read it in 18 hours. So I'm on the 3rd one right now, which is Revenge of the Wannabes by Lissy Harrison. But
there are 14 of them.
Yeah.
You're going to do them all?
I don't know. Probably not, because they get worse as they go on. But I do remember the first, 6 being pretty solid. Sarah, I love a silly rich person, and this is the origin story of my obsession with silly rich people, was the Click series by Lissy Harrison about a bunch of mean middle school girls. And so I'm just rereading them for no good reason. This is just it's even worse than Candy books. It's like injecting my bloodstream with straight sugar, because they have no substance, but they are really funny at points. So I'm also watching Gossip Girl right now, so that might have something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I am about to start Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon, which I'm extremely pumped about. I picked it up with Katey on Romance Bookstore Day. whatever. I definitely tagged it wrong in our Instagram post about it, so, which was extremely funny to look back on. I was like, this hashtag is wrong. But we did celebrate, and I got 3 romances out of it. And I'm about to start Rachel Lynn Solomon's, and I'm so excited.
It's
awesome.
excellent.
Katie, what are you reading?
I regret to inform you all that I'm kind of in a slump, but because it's the time of the semester where I want to fucking die. But I did just finish reading Rosie Dannins. I don't know how to say her last name, but it's I had an arc of her new book that is coming out in, I don't know, the fall, November. And it is called Do Your Worst. And I did not love it the way that I've loved her other ones, but it was very funny and like mildly supernatural in that there was like the lead character is a curse breaker. And there's a hot British man named Clark. So big fan of him. But it was a little insta-lovey for me, which is a little cringe, but I am a fan of hers. And it was a good kind of get me in the spooky season kind of mood book. So, because it was like not Halloween-y, but like not Halloween-y. So yeah, that's fine. And I'm also on my Throne of Glass, Sarah J. Maas bullshit still, and I can't stop. So here I am.
I'm really happy you're still on this journey for yourself.
I really am, and I'm enjoying every second of it. I just don't have any time to read right now, unfortunately. I am listening to Order of the Phoenix again, which I think is ruining me for everything else I want to listen to. So
I feel like you've been listening to Order of the Phoenix for 3 years.
Since January. I started it in January, and I've just like very occasionally popped back in. But it's because it's a hard book to listen to in the year of our Lord 2023 when shit's going down in schools and Dolores Umbridges are everywhere. And that's about as political as I'm going to get on this podcast. But yeah, it's really hard to listen to. Really hard to listen to.
We're doing really well here in
Everything's
Texas.
fine. Texas is great. It's a great place to live. Everything's fine. Our kids have access to books. It's great. Anyway, thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. This was delightful. And you are officially the first author that we know of who has listened to one of our episodes. There might be others, but if so, we don't know about it. So thank you for listening and for giving us context to the story and for even taking us making fun of Hollis's name in stride, because we did love the book. But we did feel very like, oh God, an author listened to what we said about the book.
Little bit.
I hope it was okay.
I will say, I am not going around just like listening to random podcasts about my book, because that could go very badly for me. My husband listened first and was like, you should listen. This is very nice.
Aww.
Because also, like, okay, I think it's because you have the background you do, both of you, but like, I felt very seen. Like, I felt like you were catching a lot of the things I was trying to do. And I was like, oh, they saw the intention there. So it was a very lovely experience for me. And I had to reach out and tell you. And I really appreciate it. And I had so much fun talking to you. And like, anytime you want to chat, especially about Steely Dan, I am always available.
Oh my gosh, please. I just, thank you so much for writing this book, which, as you know, we just loved. And it's a book that I certainly felt seen by, and I thank you for taking the time to, reach out to us. It's extremely flattering that you enjoyed our episode about it, and that I also have to remark that Gretchen Acorn is also a Muppet name, which
it's not her real name. Let's be real.
Ooh. I know.
She's not operating under her real name. Her real name is Gretchen Acorn, Eichhorn.
Oh my God. Well, that's an appropriate way to bring this to an end, I suppose. So thanks so much. We will. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, please also call us when you have a Jose Napoleoni merch, because we desperately want it.
I'll buy it. We'll hawk the merch for you. All all tens of our listeners will buy it, I'm sure.
I will definitely.
I'll make it for you.
I'll get on that. I will. Yeah, I'll start thinking about it. A whole line, a cookbook. We can go big with this.
Yeah, if you need a street team, we're your girls.
We're your girls.
Perfect.